All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yeah. So today I'm going to be covering Angular forms. As you might have known from the description given in the school session of our channel, I'm going to be covering template-driven and reactive. So it's quite interesting how Angular approached this. When I imagined, I thought they were going to because I remember there was a library that we used to use in Fabric where you wouldn't have to define your template. You'd define everything in code, and you'd define your validations and everything in code, and then you'd put maybe some styling in there and stuff. So their approach kind of covers both, and we'll just dive in deeper into how they came about doing this. Yeah. Close this. Okay. So we're gonna start with template driven. If I can find it now. This one. All right. So this is my dream app. If you run the commands, you'll get to this base project. And what I have done, I've just put in some HTML here, a small form that has. Okay, let me just drop this. So I have here my username, my email, and radio buttons for gender. So let's just run this. Oh snap, I forgot. So I found this useful attribute you could use here for spinning up the browser when you run ng-serve. So just say -o there. It opens up the browser. So if you don't specify by default, Angular just yeah. Okay, it's spinned up my side. Anytime now. Alright, so we have ourselves a form here. So if you can, if we go back to our form here, you can see that we have Bootstrap styling, but there's no styling there. So what you can do is you can install Bootstrap. Last time it didn't render properly because Angular 6 uses Bootstrap schematics, and so it sets up the whole thing for you. So the setup for Bootstrap. Okay, you weren't here, James.
Continue.
So what happened last time is that I updated to Angular 6 by mistake. So some of the stuff wasn't rendering, and I wondered why. And I found out later that my CLI upgraded to Angular 6. So Bootstrap is obsolete with the with Angular 6. So you'd have to install Bootstrap schematics. So it sets up everything for you. You'd run a command saying ng add. In the background, it uses npm still, but it's just the fun way to use a framework. So let's say here npm install Bootstrap. Hopefully this is quick. Right, so we've installed our Bootstrap, and if we have a look here, I think it's under Bootstrap, and then so basically what we need to do, we just need to add this path to the rest of our styles.
Was that Bootstrap already there, or was it after it was installed?
After it was installed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have the path here somewhere. So we'll scroll down now to Angular CLI .json file. If I can find my mouse.
I understand why you don't just duplicate your screen and make your life easy.
Dude, it's more fun this way. Okay, so we can hear. There you go. So that's our styles array. So we just add our. So this dot dot is a reference to the node folder, which is outside the current directory of this one. Very cool. So now, if you run this again. Oh yes, sorry. I was trying to save and then. Okay, that's fine. Alright, cool. So our Bootstrap seems to work. So now, okay, so what we want to do is this. We want Angular to do most of the work for us. So I'm pretty sure you can recognize that in our form here, so in our form here, we don't have a method like post or like the verbs, and we don't have a an action URL where it's going to post to, because you're not going to do that. So Angular is going to handle this form for us, and we're going to follow best practice to actually send it through to the server, so that our service layer is the one that communicates with the API. It's not supposed to be here. Alright, cool. So, okay, so we're gonna come here and we're gonna say on submit. Submit. It's ng on submit. And then it'll be your method. Alright, cool. So, sorry, I'm getting carried away. So here, it actually bind to, if you guys were here for the binding session, you know by now that we can bind to our existing HTML elements. So what we can do here, we can bind to our on submit variable, attribute, if I can spell. And then we can just specify a method that we can call here. So we can just say submit form. All right, and then so with this, Angular still doesn't know that we have a form, right? So what we should do here is declare a local variable, right? And so we're going to be using local variables a lot. So what happens is that a local variable is a declaration of an instance of say an HTML tag or a form control, as you'd see now. So we would say hash my form, and then that's it. But because we want Angular to know what local reference this is, we'll say it's form. It's form data. No, sorry. ng form. All right. So save that. So the thing is, Angular still doesn't know what this username is, what this email is, and so what we do is we as you'd recall, last time we used ng model, and we did two-way binding with it and everything. So this time there's going to be a slight change in how we use it. It might look weird. So what we have to do here, in order for Angular to know that this is the input that I want for my form, I have to just say ng model, and then that's it. And then I'll just copy this and do the same for email. And then we'll do this for now. There's a little trick that I want to show you guys with these radio buttons. Alright, so we've left our TypeScript code lonely, so we need to put some stuff in here that correlates with what we put in our form. So in our TypeScript code, what we need is we need a view child, right? So a view child is basically what we're going to use to get our local reference that we set in our HTML code. And what we need to do is as well to give it a type so that we it corresponds with the type that's in our HTML. So we're going to say add to view child. I import that at core, and then okay, so we will have to say we'll say this is our sign up form. And then we'll have to give this a type. So as you might recall, in our HTML, we said it's ng form, so we're expecting ng form. And now this is still going to give us issues. So what's missing now is that this needs to be imported from forms. Alright, cool. So last time we had to do this add a. We had to import the forms module. So I think we'll do the same now. I'll just have to say import forms module. Come on. Import forms module from at forms. Should just work. Oh yes, that's a not being used. I thought maybe I spelled it wrong. Okay, so and then after that, you'd have to declare it in your imports with your other modules. So here, this is the modules that'll be available across your whole entire application. So especially with complex applications like Campus Life, you would want to make some stuff available across the app and some stuff just to cater for those components. So yeah, you'd import it here. Alright. And then in here we can now use our ng form. So I can just now just say import ng form from yeah. Sorry, I seem to have misspelled that. Cool. Right. So now, this thing, it's still not going to work because we're saying here this is a sign up form, which is our preferred name, and here we're saying it's a my form, right? So in order we need to make sure Angular is aware of this alias. So we come here, say my form, and yeah. All right. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to so what is the method that we declared here? Say submit form. So for our submit form, so for our submit form, what we could do is we could just print out the value of this form. So we can just log it, but preferably we'd want to output the values somewhere. Not for now, just output it here. Say sign of form, sorry. List of sign of form, and then say values. All right. So if we press submit here and see our log, let's declare name. Email. I think it should work now. gender. All right. Right. Do that. And then, yeah, it should hit our breakpoint with our values, as you can see there. And press continue. And then it should be logged. Yeah, there you go. So I'm pretty sure if you specify the engine should. Yeah. Yeah. And then console. Yeah. Alright, cool. Alright, so we're gonna get into the fun bit just about now. Alright, cool. So, alright. So Angular tries to make use of the current implementations already, especially from Angular 5. So, like stuff like required and stuff, like using actual event binding on an element, and binding to properties that are in here. You'll see that like there's some things that Angular would not repeat that maybe AngularJS would have done, as to avoid redundancy and stuff. So what I'm going to try and do is instead. So what I'm going to try and do is try and have fun with this radio button here. There is no need for us to have two radio buttons like this. We can have just one radio button here and have it dynamically choose or have it dynamically display the options to the user that we've set in our TypeScript code. So let's try and do that. So in our TypeScript code, we'd say gender. Guys, don't sue me over this, right? Male or female? Let's not complicate this.
I was a little.
If you just assume the
Yeah. So see here. So okay. Remember the first session I told you about types and stuff. So anything after the equal signs is a value, and anything before is a type. So that's how you could. So if say, can you say male, and then you can just say male. Hang on, I can do this. Yeah. And then in our HTML, we would have to. Give me a second. So, sorry, this is not appropriate. These are genders. In fact, yeah. Let's be on the safe side here and just say other. could get in serious trouble for for these type of things. Alright, cool. So, as I said here, we don't need to in here. So, what we need to do is we need to display obviously these genders here. So we already defined them in our TypeScript code. So what we could do is we could just run through them. So as we did in our last binding session, we ran through like how do you cycle through an array. So you'd have to just say ng4 and TypeScript does this weird thing of not saying it's in and off and declares variables as let, as far, or whatever, you know. So you have to say here let, and then this is our variable that we're just declaring now. Off genders we got from our TypeScript code, and then it should cycle through all of these. So what we should see now is just females.
I forgot to remove the one label.
Wait. Oh, sorry guys. Okay, cool. So as you can see, it failed. When you guys who were here last week, can you tell me why it failed? Sorry? Yes. Very cool. So there's different types of directives. There's property directives, there's event binding directives, and there's structural directives. Structural directive, the one that manipulate the DOM, so they interact DOM directly, and obviously binding. So binding directives, basically you'd see them with either square brackets or round brackets. Round brackets for event binding. So I'd have to put a store in here to say this is my so yeah, cool. So there's only females here. Alright, cool. So we want a variety. So what we can do is we can say we can bind to the HTML input and say we're hijacking this this value. Now instead of it being static, it's going to be dynamic. And then we say gender. And who can tell me what we're going to do with this? Because you don't want females to map to male or stuff.
So then would you put it as you declared in the other place? It would be like female, male.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Alright, cool. So what you do is you use string interpolation here. Interpolation, yeah. And then it'll display the yeah. So yeah, so it should do the right thing now. Boom. Later on, we'd learn about pipes, and you would know what to do with stuff like making this uppercase or whatever. But we'll deal with that in the next session. So now do this. Let's submit. continue. Boom. It still works. Alright. So another thing that I want us to dive into is forms are really useful when only when it comes to validating. So if you want to validate your stuff, and you're using Angular, you'd want to use forms. So I'm gonna dive into the template-driven approach, and then we'll go into the reactive one. All right, cool. So what we do have here is inputs, and we just want to validate if alright, cool. So what we can do here, we just want to say, okay, cool, everything should be required. That's the basic stuff that we could require from a form, and then here we'd have to just do it once. Right. And then we want to say if our form is not valid, it shouldn't submit. So we are going to say we're going to bind to the disable property in here. Disabled, and then we're going to use our local reference. This guy. As you can guess, the reason why it's called local reference is because you can only reference it locally. You can't reference it outside of this component or this HTML. So I have to say ng form dot, and then I think it's visible here. No, it's not. Let's try and submit this again. I want you guys to see something. Alright, cool. These prototype stuff. I don't know. Maybe if I find time, I'll dive into prototypes and how JavaScript inherits and all that stuff. If you guys are interested. But right, cool. So these are prototypes of this element here, and if we so basically we can see what stuff we can bind to here. Like most of the time, this is how I get to see like what properties I can bind to. But this is not really doing it right. Yeah, normally you just get like a ton of oh, sorry. For that you would need to log the actual form. Okay, cool. So this is your form, right? So as you can see here, we have your controls. We're going to be working with this very closely. So yeah, we have our email, our gender, username, and this is the variable I'm interested in, the valid attribute. And so this is what I'm using for validating whether the form is valid. So if we do something like this, so we define that it's required, right? So if we just say submit here, it should say it's invalid. It logged here. False. Right. So that's what I'm going to use. I just spin up Teams. Alright, cool. So I'm going to say here in my HTML that valid so I'm going to say here, if this is not valid, then disable it, because we wouldn't want to disable our form if it's valid. So as you can see here, we haven't really touched anything. Angular makes a note of that. But as soon as I touch here and go here, oh, I can't submit. The color is very bad on the screen, so it's actually disabled right now. I can't click on it, nothing happens. But as soon as I do this, yeah. So now I can click on it, and then now this happens. Yeah. So yeah. So that doesn't really help us much. What we want to do is we want to tell the user before the form gets submitted that actually you messed up. So what we would do is so come here. I'm gonna use a span and also an existing class called help block.
Now, will this, as you're going through the form, will it give you, yeah, because I hate that those forms that when you click submit, then they close everything.
Yeah. So yeah. So we'll go into how to make this more. So say maybe username required. It's required. Is it help block? Cool. So we'll say here username is required, and then if we just let this load here, we just want to see how it looks before we do anything. So Amen. Is my stuff working? It's fine. It's fine. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna bind to the style attributes. So just gonna see style, the color, and say red.
That's how you spell style.
I can't see it now. Oh yeah.
Not how you spell style. Spell style.
Style one.
Alright, cool. So username is required. So we obviously want this to be displayed when it's invalid, right? When else do we want to make this appear?
When you want to scare the user.
Very cool. So, what would be nice is if maybe just after skipping the input box, right? It tells you right away that actually this is required. And so, how do we define this? How do we write this? So, we say ngIf username dot valid. So if username is not valid and username dot, there's a property here. It's a long process for me to show you guys, but it's just how I logged the ngForm control. So there's a property here called touched.
So is that when someone clicks the box?
Yeah.
To enter.
Yeah. This is that. Sometimes when you're editing the form, Angular would provide these I would say classes for you. You'll see. It's just I don't really have time now, but you'll see it. It'll give you, like, if you press inspect and if you look at the HTML, you'll see the class that it actually provides for you. And it's right. You'd actually see here, just like this touched here. You'd see stuff like is valid, invalid, dirty. I think I used to see that in AngularJS. But yeah. So you'd use that class to style your input, if that state is in there, because it'll just add that class in there, and so if it adds it, you'd have already styled it, and then it'll display correctly as you'd want it. I want this. It's unreadable now. Okay. And then obviously this is our structural directive, and we forgot to tell username about this. So as we said, we in order for us to use our HTML element here, we need to pass in like a local reference, and this is not just any HTML element, it's our form control. So we need to let Angular know. So we're gonna say Benji model. Yeah, that should do it. So come here and then come here. That happens. Yeah. So basically, and as you all know, not the same stuff is expected when we take emails into consideration. There's a lot of validation. I tried writing a regex for an email once, and it was a bunch of fun.
What would be the requirements for the email? Would it be like an @ sign?
Just check there's an @ in the middle and somewhere there. Don't even bother doing the rest.
Yeah,
It's not worth it.
yeah, because the rest, yeah,
Emails are incredibly complicated.
yeah,
You just read it, validate, check there's an @ sign. There has to be an @ sign, and
Yeah.
then just send them a verification email.
Okay.
The rest is always to your life.
very cool. So, what Angular does for us is that you can actually specify and say, okay, this is an email field. There obviously are others. I'll touch on that in other sessions. So you can actually tell Angular that this is actually an email field, and it'll validate it as an email. So you won't have to do that. What do you call it? Tedious work of validating. So we're going to do something similar that we did with our username. Cool. So we're going to do something that we did similar with our username, but instead we're going to say here email. Done. That's it. And then you're also going to pass in a local reference here to do the fun stuff here. What is this? So we're going to say email, and then let's just copy this as well. So yeah, there's not much that needs to be done. There's not much that needs to be done besides just this. And so that valid would be based on whether it's an actual valid email. Alright.
Username is required for the email.
I forgot what?
You see,
regex.
The one that gets outputted on your span element, username is required.
Very cool. Right. So if we come back here, I did something wrong. Very cool. Let's stop it up. Console. Oh.
extra div.
Huh?
I said it looked like there was that extra div.
Oh yes, I copied it by mistake here. Yeah, it makes sense now. Right, cool. So if you come here, and then if you come here, that's also required.
Cool.
Now, if we say, Jesus Christ.
Is it isn't?
Come on. So if we say test, you can see here, this is still not enabled. If we say at, this is still not enabled. Wait. And then if you say mail.com,
Oh, cool.
voila. Yeah. So, alright, cool. Now we're gonna quickly jump into reactive. Basically, reactive is you define and you so you define and validate stuff in your TypeScript code, right? So template driven is so everything gets applied to your what you call this your template you've set here in your HTML. So what we're going to look at now is how you do that with from your TypeScript code. It looks similar to this, but yeah, I'll explain a little bit about the benefits. Right, cool. So I'm going to close this entirely now. I'm just going to jump through. So I made another one called My Dream Apple.
Apple.
Yeah, because I didn't know what to say. Because the other one is My Dream App, so I just added. Yeah. So let's add this here. So alright, cool. Let's just say ngserve and see how that looks. For this one, I've already added them because I've shown you guys. So I've already added the bootstrap stuff. Let's see how that goes. Let's view what it's doing here. Where is it now? There you go. So it's still building. I should have said open when you're done. Alright, cool. So that's all we have. So now let's dive in a little bit into what we have here. Alright, cool. So if we look at our HTML, let's just drop that a little bit. So we have the same thing here. I feel like just copying it now through. That's fine. I'll leave it here. So we have that. Yeah.
So which is best effective?
Sorry?
Which one is better to do? Do the validation here or?
I prefer doing it in TypeScript, so I'll show you now. So, myself sorted here. Very cool. So, in order for us to create a right. So, in order for us to create our template-driven form, we need to come here. We'll just start in the. I found my mouse. Very cool. So, come here to our controller. Okay, cool. So, we need to just say, okay, we have our sign up form. We have to do this dance again where we install the form module and stuff. This is form group. That's fine. So we have to do this dance again. Let's just say here's a form, and then we'll come back here. Stay again. Import forms module. And then we import it here. And then we import it here. So we've declared our sign up form. So now all we need to do is decide whether we want to how we want to like initialize our form. So what we could do is you could just say you're gonna do we're gonna bind to our ng on it, life cycle method. So here we're going to say on init. On init, here we're going to say ng on init. Jeez. Giving me a hard time. Oh, sorry. You have to say implements. I think you can find it here. You should be able to find it here. Oh, yeah, you do. Very cool. So, ng on it. So, as soon as our component initializes, we want to set up this form. So I'm just going to say this dot wait. So you're going to say new form group. And then we're just gonna go all in here, and then we're gonna we'll have to just assign our variables that we need in here. Let's just do that. Alright, cool. So what we need is say username, and then obviously this is a form control. And then we have our email. Email. And same thing here. Then we have our gender. Cool. So this could just work. Like if we run this, it should just compile. But what you want to do is you want to explicitly define your values. So the parameters that you pass in here are optional. So we have like you can just pass in nulls here just to initialize your form, or you can pass in a value, say male, and then comes the fun part. So here you can just say validators. So you can just say validators, and then you could actually specify what do you want to like how do you want to validate this. So for our username, like all we want to just for it to be required. Required all the way at the bottom. And obviously, if you have more like validation parameters, you can pass in here. It also accepts a array of validators. So you can just say validator dot. You can also say required, and also Angular Kit is for email, so you can specify email, and also this is very nice and dynamic. You have that pattern, so basically you can specify your own regex stuff that you want to validate this form with. So you can just say emails in there, and then yeah. So that's all we need to do here. In our form though, here we need to bind to our ng submit directive, and then of course submit form. And then we need to tell Angular that this is now a reactive form, right? So in template driven, what we did was we said it's a ng form. So here we're going to specify that it's a form group. Yeah, cool. So here you can just bind to our form group here. And then specify that it's our sign up form. Yeah, it's totally different. So in this way, we can now just assign a control to each input form that we've actually defined in our TypeScript code. So we come in here. So all we need to do now is just say form control name is equal to what we defined in our code. So we said it's username, and then I'm just going to do the same for email. And then the same for gender. Except that now, we don't need these things. So we're gonna do the same thing we did earlier. Damn, if only I just copy pasted this stuff. So we can just say genders here. And then in our code here, do the same thing. So just see here, ng4 let gender gender of genders, and then
So this also mean that you'd only need one radio button.
yeah. So as you can see here, we don't really need to bind to the value part of it. No, actually, sorry, we do. Alright, cool. So what I want to quickly do now is I'm going to do the same test we did for that email. So we're just going to say ngIf so you're gonna say ngIf, and then we're gonna get our form control. So we're just gonna say sign up form that we declared in our TypeScript dot get our control. So our control is email, and then you would say and then you'd access the control values. So let's say valid here. So obviously, if it's not valid and it's been touched, what did I do? Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between accessing a sign-up form from TypeScript and accessing it from this local scope that you got?
Here we didn't define a local, like a local variable here. We bind it to our Angular form group, and that's how we, that's how we got that's how we got to tell Angular that this is our form. Yeah. So something seems to be wrong. Just check quickly. What normally happens if you haven't imported this, but I have. Yeah. But yeah, so what should happen is that you should. So yeah, it should just work as normal as we did earlier. So when you click on that email.
But now, you know, you got two validators now.
Mm-hmm.
Will it show different text depending on what's in the field? So, like, if it's an email that there's a blank space where the email text should be, they'll just say email is required.
Mm.
But then if there is an email, they would say a valid email is required.
Yeah. So no, I wish it was like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, this approach just lets you define the validators in TypeScript,
Okay.
and you have to manually display the messages out here. Maybe it's this. I don't know. should have just worked. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you today. Enjoy it. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.